Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in your Bhagavatha Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. Today we will be starting our study circle with a meditation. This so before then, I would like everyone to mute your cell phone and let's ask relevant questions and speak from the heart when the discussion begins. But before then, we will be starting a 15-minute Kriya Yoga meditation today, and with that, and we'll start our discussion after that. So I request everyone to please be seated, and I'll give it a couple of minutes if anyone needs time to adjust. But please sit comfortably and let's focus. Sai Ram.
DSG presents your favorite classic fleece, the All-Star. It comforts you on your first day back.
Welcome. This is your secret time, a time to go within. Sit tall with straight spine. Let your hands rest gently on your knees. Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale softly. Feel your body beginning to settle. Feel your energy beginning to awaken. Inhale deeply again and exhale fully. Let go of any tension. Let go of yesterday. Feel the ground beneath you, supporting you, holding you. You are safe. Now bring your awareness to the base of your spine. Visualize a gentle light there, soft, warm, steady. As you inhale, feel the light glow brighter. As you exhale, feel it anchor you deeper. This is your foundation. Let this light begin to rise with your breath. As you inhale, it gently climbs upward, moving up the spine. As you exhale, it settles gently at each point. Breathe in, energy rising. Breathe out, calm, expanding. Now bring your awareness to the area just below your navel. This is your center of vitality. With each breath, awaken the space. Feel your energy here, steady and alive. Inhale strength. Exhale softness. Let your awareness move to the center of your chest, to the space of your heart. Breath into the center. Let it open gently. Let it receive peacefully. With every inhale, expand with love. With every exhale, release with grace. Now follow your breath as it rises up to the throat, the space of expansion and truth. Breathe gently and feel this area soften. Let truth rise with inhale and tension fall away with exhale. Now focus between your eyebrows, the center of vision, the seat of your inner knowing. With each breath, bring clarity. With each exhale, invite stillness. Now imagine the breath rising all the way to the crown of your head, a soft light above you. Inhale connection. Exhale surrender. You are connected to the higher source, to peace, to light. Let your breath now move freely from the base of your spine to the crown of your head and back again. Inhale every rising. Exhale energy settling. Now let's begin Kriya style breathe awareness. Inhale slowly up to the spine, visualizing the breath as the stream of light. Exhale gently down to the spine, letting the light flow back to the base. Keep flowing this rhythm. Up with inhale, down with exhale. No effort, just awareness, just flow, just be there. Breath becomes light, light becomes silence. Now mentally repeat with each breath. Inhale, I rise. Exhale, I return. Inhale, light. Exhale, peace. Let the breath move you. Allow all tension to melt. Let your shoulders drop. Let your face soften. Unclutch your jaw. You are still. You are open. Return again to the breath. That secret flow. Up and down the spine. Breathe. Be. Allow. Now visualize a soft golden orb of a light just above your head. With each inhale, it grows brighter With each exhale, it gently pours into your crown. This is your higher awareness, your calm witness. Let it fill your whole body from head to toe, bringing healing and deep stillness. Now gently affirmations and breath goes. Inhale space, exhale resistance, energy flows, you are aligned. Let the mind rest, let breath lead. You are balanced, you are aware. Feel each breath rise like a wave and fall like one. You are grounded and open. Your breath, the stillness, the light. Inhale peace, exhale resistance. Now slowly begin to return. Feel your body again. Feel the ground beneath you. Wiggle your fingers, your toes. Take a deep breath in and a long, slow breathe out. Place your hands over your heart. Whisper gently in your mind, I am present. I am whole. Now bring a soft smile on your face. Let this calm move with you into your day. You carry this peace within. You are light. Begin to open your eyes softly. Feel the room. Feel your breath. You are completed your practice, grounded, balanced, awake. Take this moment to thank yourself. You shown up. You went within. Now rise with clarity. Move with purpose. Speak with kindness. You are light. You are love. You are free. Namaste. Your day begins in peace.
Sai Ram. We can take a minute if you need to. Thank you all for participating here today. Sai Ram. So today is our 92nd session. We had a session on Thursday where we reviewed or listened to chapter 40 and talked about the role of mind um, and the formation. We talked about the ignorance. We talked about the difference between kriya and karma. We talked about how the mind can be a hurdle and a boon, and how we have to use the mind to remove the mind. So those are the kind of discussions we did have. We ended with the role of Maya. Of course, we had discussed this in the past as well, but we talked about how the senses impact us, and how the senses are there to bind us to the outside world. And we talked about Swami's ceiling on desires was because it's so hard to be desireless. It's a good place to start having those ceiling, build your own boundaries. And then we ended with saying that both bondage and liberation happen in Maya itself. One needs the mind for everything, and even in this chapter, Swami ends by saying that the mind is the one that you need to control, but you need to use the mind to control the mind. So does anyone have anything to add about our discussion? Please feel free. Okay, so I thought we can listen to Who is Liberated. This is a small talk by Swami Sarvapriyananda, and we can continue our discussion following that. If there is anything anyone would like to add, this is a great time, or else we can just continue the discussion after we play the video.
Ishvara and Jiva. Jiva is me. What we have got so far. According to Advaita Vedanta, one pure consciousness exists, Chit. Through Maya, it appears as Ishvara and Jiva. Jiva is me. And because of the interplay of Ishvara and Jiva, a world is created. And what is this Jiva, this Purusha? It's a combination, an error, a confusion between Chidabhasa and Chit. Pure consciousness, reflected consciousness. I am not aware of myself at all as pure consciousness, let alone the distinction between that. See, in our state of error, we are not even aware that there is such a thing as pure consciousness. Before coming to Vedanta class, we are not even aware that such a thing exists. And all we are aware of is the world and the body and the fact that I am aware of some kind of sentient being, conscious being in this body-mind. That's the reflected consciousness. This mixture, like the real face, mirror and reflected face, this mixture is called the Purusha. As long as we stress the mirror and the reflected face, you are in samsara. When you negate the mirror and the reflected face and say, this is my real face, you are free of samsara. Just like that, as long as we think we are the reflected consciousness in body and mind, we are in samsara. We are bound to be affected by the world. We are bound to be affected by the body. We are bound to be affected by the mind also. Very difficult to come out of it. But when you negate this confusion, when you cut, there's no link at all. What links me and the mirror? Nothing. I'm just looking at the mirror, that's all. So what is the link between pure consciousness? Okay, put it this way. One sadhu put it very nicely. What is the link between Chid and Chidabhasa? What is the connection between pure consciousness and reflected consciousness? What is the connection between the real you and the person you? The answer is there's no connection at all. And he said, Bevkufi matra, stupidity only. The only connection between you and the mirror is I would be stupid to think that I am that reflected face. You will say, you are stupid. No, you are not that reflected face. You are here. But I see that. Yes, you see it, but you don't see yourself. That's why you think you are that one. So that's what is happening to us. Now, immediately, a question arises. So these questions come to all of us. The question is, suppose there's an opponent. This is how in Vedanta the subject is developed. Purva Paksha and Siddhanta. Siddhanta means you, the non-dualist, and Purva Paksha means the opponent, the one who raises objections. Often they come from different schools of philosophy. So the opponent raises a question. Just a minute. In America you call it raining on your parade. Wait, hold it right there. Who is the one who says, I am Brahman, I am pure consciousness? Is it pure consciousness who says that? Because pure consciousness cannot say that. You just said, speaking, listening, thinking, understanding, all of that is done by the reflected consciousness. But reflected consciousness also cannot say that, because reflected consciousness is reflected consciousness. It's not pure consciousness. So who says I am pure consciousness in your system? So here's the question of, what do you mean by I? When I say I am Brahman, what is the meaning of I in Vedanta? And Vidyaranya makes a distinction of I, the three uses of I. I've mentioned this at other times also. The three meanings of I. There's one primary meaning and two implied meaning or secondary meaning. In Sanskrit, mukhyartha, lakshyartha. The primary meaning of I is the meaning used by everybody, the common person, in the level of ignorance, under the influence of ignorance. When we say I, what do we mean? We mean I, this body-mind, that's all we mean. And according to Vedanta, what we mean is this mixture, this confusion of Chit and Chidabhasa. Pure consciousness, reflected consciousness. This mixture is what we mean by I, precisely. In general, we mean this body and mind. Why do we mean this body and mind by the word term I? Because the I refers to the mixture of Chit and Chidabhasa, basically the reflected consciousness. And the reflected consciousness is reflected in the mind. So the moment you refer to the reflected consciousness, the mind comes along with it. And the mind is deeply connected to the body, so the body also comes along with it. So the moment we say I, we mean this body, mind, this awareness I. Notice, it's exactly, if you precisely want to point out what do you mean by I, you mean that awareness. This person, this awareness we all of us feel right now. What is this awareness? Now we know the terms. This is Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. So according to Vedanta, under conditions of ignorance, masses, most of us, we mean Chit plus Chidabhasa. Why Chit plus Chidabhasa? Because Chit is always there. When you mean the reflected face, the original face, the real face is always there. So this mixture of Chit and Chidabhasa is what we mean by I. The enlightened person means something different by I. So these are important clarifications. When the enlightened person uses the word I, what does the enlightened person refer to? Because words refer to things. When I say clock, it refers to this thing. So when say I, what does the enlightened person refer to? The enlightened person has two meanings for the word I. One is Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness, and the other one is Chit, pure consciousness. So the distinction is very clear when we take that example I gave you about Sri Ramakrishna suffering from cancer. When Sri Ramakrishna says, it hurts and I cannot eat. And he says, I cannot eat. What is he referring to by the term I? Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. And the moment Hari Maharaj tells him that, but I see that you are in bliss. And when Sri Ramakrishna acknowledges, yes, I am in bliss, that I am in bliss, that I, what does it refer to? Pure consciousness, Chit. Let me repeat that. The enlightened person uses I in two senses. In order to deal with us, in order to live in this practical world, in order to play the role he is playing, because for the enlightened person, it's only a role. The enlightened person knows I am not this. So as long as this drama of life continues, the enlightened person continues to play the role and plays it very well. In that role, the enlightened person refers to the I as that role, that Chidabhasa, the reflected consciousness. Yes, here is a body with cancer. and there is pain, and there is suffering, and there's such a struggle, and I say, I am in pain, I am suffering, Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. But the difference between the enlightened person and the rest of us is that the enlightened person can equally honestly say, even more honestly than that, say, I am not in pain. I am in bliss. Because Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. That is the second sense in which the enlightened person uses the term I to refer to pure consciousness. Summing up, how do you use I in Vedanta? In three ways. The ignorant one uses I to refer to body and mind because the ignorant one means only reflected consciousness by I, Chit. You see how useful these distinctions are, Chit and Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness, pure consciousness. But the enlightened one, the ignorant one means only the awareness, this reflected consciousness. The enlightened one uses I in two senses. Second meaning of I and third meaning of I. The second meaning is the enlightened one means reflected consciousness when he wants to deal with the rest of us and play the role in life, not seriously. And really, truly, from his heart, if you ask, really, who are you? I am Brahman. Pure consciousness. The I refers to Chit, pure consciousness. I refers to Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. These are the second and third meanings. First meaning for the ignorant one. Second and third meanings for the enlightened one. The enlightened one sees the distinction between reflected consciousness and pure consciousness. We do not. That's the difference. The opponent won't give up so easily. The opponent says, you have not answered my question. Who is it that says, I am Brahman? Only one who can say is reflected consciousness. But reflected consciousness is not pure consciousness. How can the reflected consciousness say, I am pure consciousness? And pure consciousness cannot say, I am pure consciousness, because pure consciousness cannot say anything. Pure consciousness is pure consciousness. It is a big question. Who realizes? Who is doing Vedanta? Who becomes enlightened? So this question goes very deep. It is asked in many forms. I have, throughout the last few years, so many ways. If I am Brahman, then whom am I worshipping? How can a non-dualist worship God? All these questions can be answered by these distinctions. See. So the opponent persists in asking the question, who is it that asks, how can the reflected consciousness say, I am pure consciousness? It's not true. Isn't it wrong to say such a thing by your own philosophy? And the answer is, there is no harm in this. Very subtle point. This is because the reflected consciousness is none other than the pure consciousness. Wait a minute. The opponent would say, didn't the whole of this exercise was to separate pure consciousness and reflected consciousness? The distinction between reflected consciousness and pure consciousness, this is what you wanted to teach. And now you have the chutzpah, the gall to say that they are not separate. The subtle point is this. Pure consciousness is indeed separate from reflected consciousness. But reflected consciousness is not separate from pure consciousness. What do you mean by that? Very easy. Real face is separate from the reflected face. But reflected face is not separate from real face. How? Real face can exist without the reflection. Take away the mirror. Is the face there or not? I cannot see it, but you can see. It's there. But take away the real face. Is the reflection there? No. The reflection does not exist without the reality. The reflection is nothing, ultimately, nothing but the reality. By the way, just a little aside, this nothing but pure consciousness, reflected consciousness is nothing but pure consciousness. This entire universe is nothing but consciousness. Yesterday in a class, Professor Arindam Chakravarti was saying that this famous Oxford philosopher, Gilbert Ryle, who wrote this book on the concept of mind, he used to say this reductionism, when you say that, consciousness is nothing but the brain. So that's reductionism. It's called a materialistic reductionism. All of what we see here is nothing but matter and energy. Reductionism. So he used to call it, he said he invented a term, he called it nothing buttery. Nothing buttery. So Advaita Vedanta is also a kind of nothing buttery. It says, of course, he was himself guilty of a little bit of nothing buttery because he reduced the distinction between mind and body to only a matter of language. That was fashionable in Oxford and Cambridge at that time, in the 50s and 60s, ordinary language philosophy. So he said it's just a confusion created by language. This was under influence of Bertrand Russell, Wittgenstein and others. So nothing but a confusion created by language, nothing buttery. But what Vidyaranya wants to say is, reflected consciousness is nothing but pure consciousness. Therefore, if reflected consciousness were to say, I am pure consciousness, not wrong. It's all right. It's like this. Who is saying that I am pure consciousness? Pure consciousness is saying I am pure consciousness using reflected consciousness. It's like this. When I say I am happy, notice closely, how am I saying it? The tongue is moving, the air is pumping from the lungs, the voice box is operating, and the mouth basically says, I am happy. Is the mouth happy? Is the tongue happy? Are the lungs happy? Is the voice box happy? No. Happiness is in the mind. And the mind is using the vocal apparatus to express its own happiness. And there's nothing wrong if the tongue says, I am happy. It does not mean the tongue is happy. It means the mind is happy. But the mind cannot speak. The mind speaks with the help of this vocal apparatus. Similarly, pure consciousness is alone the one which realizes I am pure consciousness using the reflected consciousness. So the opponent's question was, isn't it wrong for reflected consciousness can at the most say, there is a pure consciousness. See, these questions keep coming. Many people speak like this. My Atman, I have now understood. My Atman is all right. It is pure, Satchidananda. But I have many problems. What are you doing? You are talking like reflected consciousness. You're saying pure consciousness. My pure consciousness is fine, but I am having problems. Not my pure consciousness. You are the pure consciousness. Own up to that. That itself is enlightenment. The moment you step back from reflected consciousness into pure consciousness, that your real nature is pure consciousness, and see that reflected consciousness is only your reflection, which enables you to operate this body-mind system. And then in this body-mind system, you come to the realization using the intellect, the reflected consciousness, it says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. That's perfectly all right, nothing wrong with it. It's like the rope and the snake. Pure consciousness is like the rope, and the reflected consciousness is like the snake. It's an appearance. It's not real in itself. It's nothing buttery. It's nothing but pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is the only reality. Reflected consciousness is false. It's mithya. And the mithya, the false, cannot exist without the real. It is grounded in the real. Immediately the opponent says, but that leads to more problems. Next question is even more subtle. If you understand the question, the answers are interesting. The next question is, you just said that the reflected consciousness is false. The pure consciousness alone is true. Bodhopi mithya chet. Then if the reflected consciousness is false, then its realization, I am Brahman, that also is false. The knowledge you are talking about, all this Vedantic knowledge, that's false knowledge then. Because the one who realizes it, that reflected consciousness who is saying, I am Brahman, that's false. You just admitted reflected consciousness is false. It's an appearance. Then the knowledge of that reflected consciousness is also false. Not only that, the liberation achieved by this knowledge, you said by realizing the difference between reflected consciousness and pure consciousness, Chit and Chidabhasa, you will be free of samsara. This liberation also becomes false then. Do you see the question? And Vidyaranya's answer there is very blunt and humorous. He says, Na iti kovadet. Who denies it? We are not denying it. We are very happy that it is false. According to Vedanta, you, the pure consciousness, you are always free. Your freedom is real. Your bondage was never real. A false bondage is corrected by a false liberation generated by a false knowledge. So what a crazy philosophy. Advaita Vedanta holds this very seriously. If the snake is false, then the disappearance of the snake also will be false. Vidyaranya says, Rajju Sarpa Visarpanam. Visarpanam means the slithering away of the snake. Even the word, it sounds like hissing and slithering away. Rajju Sarpa Visarpanam. He says, if the snake was false, isn't the going away of the snake, the slithering away of the snake, as if, when you get the knowledge, it's a rope, it's not a snake, the snake is gone. So that going away of the snake, was it true or false? False also. The presence of the snake was false. And then when the snake is dismissed by the knowledge, oh, it's a false snake, the dismissal also is false. Ultimately, what is real? Ultimately, what is real is the rope. Similarly, the so-called bondage, I was in bondage. You as pure consciousness were never in bondage. This because of so-called ignorance. So that false ignorance is dismissed by the false knowledge, and that false bondage is cleared up by the false liberation, and you realize you are always liberated. And Vidyaranya says that is our position. He says, who denies it? When the opponent says that so your knowledge also is false. If the reflected consciousness is false, and then the reflected consciousness is knowledge, I am pure consciousness, then that is also false. Yes, of course. Then what's the point here? This knowledge will work. That's all we need. It is enough to dismiss the ignorance. Ignorance is in the mind, and knowledge must come in the mind to dismiss that ignorance. You, the pure consciousness, you are always free. The ignorance in the mind was, I am this awareness here. But that's reflected consciousness. That ignorance is removed, and then the knowledge comes, I am that pure consciousness. Oh, I was always free. So false ignorance is this. This is from the Mandukya Karika. We had discussed this quite some time back. Na nirodho na cha utpatti, na baddho na cha sadhaka, na mumukshur na vai mukta, ityesha paramarthata. The opponent asks, then what is the truth according to you non-dualists? The truth is this much. There is no creation, no dissolution of any universe. There is no one in bondage, no one practicing spiritual disciplines. There is no one seeking liberation, indeed no one who is liberated. This is the final truth. What does that mean? You are pure consciousness itself even right now, and that's a wonderful thing. How ridiculous it would be to say that the snake is false, but it really slithered away. It did not really slither away. You just realized it was false, and you realized it was always a rope. Similarly, this entire dream of the universe of samsara is dismissed by this realization, aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. That I am pure consciousness, I am Chit. And this, he says, atmanam ched vijaniyat ayam asmiti purushaha. This word ayam in that original mantra of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is, it indicates direct realization. Vidyaranya says, Shankaracharya in fact himself says, the realization should come with as much confidence as you are saying right now, I am this person, this body mind. With that much confidence you should be able to say, I am pure consciousness. With as much confidence you feel right now, I am this little awareness in this mind, that's Chidabhasa. With that much confidence at least, you should feel, I am pure consciousness. What happens is, before learning all these things, we had no doubt I was this body and mind. Now, after learning all this, we are in doubt. We are not so totally sure that we are this body and mind, but we are not very totally sure also that we are pure consciousness. So we are in a state of doubt now. And Shankaracharya says that won't do. For liberation, for freedom from suffering, that much clarity should be there. The verse is a very beautiful verse. Dehatma jnanavad jnanam, dehatma jnana badhate, atmanyeva bhaved yasya, sanechannapi muchyate. Very nice and humorous verse. He says, just as Shankaracharya himself says, and Vidyaranya quotes it, Shankaracharya says that Dehatma jnanavat jnanam, just as the knowledge we have that I am this body mind, that kind of knowledge, with that conviction, if it comes, then it will be enough to negate this confusion that I am body mind. It must come with that much conviction. Then only it will be capable of negating it. The one who gets this kind of a knowledge in pure consciousness, that means the way you're confident, I am this reflected consciousness in this body and mind. With that much confidence, you can say, I am pure consciousness. Chidananda rupaha shivoham. Shankaracharya sings, Mano buddhi hankara chittani naham. I am not the mind, not the intellect, not the memory, not the ego. Chidananda rupaha shivoham. I am of the nature of pure consciousness. I am the nature of bliss. I am the nature of Shiva. With that much confidence, if you can say, and humorously he says, Sa nechannapi muchyate. Even if this person does not want it, he will get liberation. Why? Because his very nature is liberation. That's why I say, don't be too eager to become enlightened. There are no, what do they call it in the shop? There's no take back, no returns. You say, I didn't want it. Oh my God, I'm liberated now. The game of life is at an end. Sorry, no returns. Once you have got this, he says, Nechannapi muchyate. Even if, he's humorous of course, even if he does not want liberation, he'll be liberated. Because you realize that you always were liberated. You are this pure consciousness, always liberated. Liberation comes choicelessly to such a person. But that much conviction must be there, that much clarity must be there. Summing up, this beautiful mantra which we'll take a look at again next week. Atmanam ched vijaniyat ayam asmiti purushaha kimichan kasya kamaya shariram anusanjvaret. If one were to realize this, one means the one who till now thought, I am this mixture of Chit and Chidabhasa, using Vedantic terms. Now we have learned the terms. I am this mixture of Chit and Chidabhasa. If you were to realize, oh, I am Chit, pure consciousness, not Chidabhasa, then desiring what and for whose sake would that person continue to suffer? That person will be able to say, like Sri Ramakrishna, yes, at the level of the body, there is suffering. But as Chit, as pure consciousness, I am in bliss. Jivan muktasya ya triptihi. The completion, the fullness, the perfect satisfaction, the perfect bliss of the enlightened, of the Jivan Mukta. What is samsari? I am Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. What is Jivan Mukta? I am Chit, pure consciousness. That is the takeaway from today's talk. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. I pray to the
Okay, Sairam, I thought this was in continuation of our conversation on Thursday. This is what I thought we should actually focus on. I do have a few questions, but the questions are just to kind of help us reflect on what Swamiji's just talked about. So, what is your understanding? Just because if we don't have a goal to take away or what we want to achieve from 100 sessions or 150, whatever number of sessions we do is going to be pointless if we don't own up to what we want to learn. People may not have the same questions that I do, or people may think this is all too intricate, but this is the knowledge that we are working towards during our discussions. We have done many discussions by the minute, actually, and I know we only have 15 minutes, but I thought we can start the discussion. We can continue it on Thursday as well, and then move along to the final two chapters of our Bhagavata Vahini, moving along. So anyway, so Swamiji was talking so much about who is liberated and who says that they are liberated, or who should say. So if we talk about that, so I have a few questions here. If the mind is inert by itself, how does reflected consciousness make us feel alive and intelligent? That was the only thought that I had, actually, the first thing as soon as I. Yeah, please. Here. 1 minute, one.
For me, it is very similar to say you have a toy that is battery operated, right? So the battery is the inner conscious, right? If the battery is not there, the toy is not going to work. As soon as you put the battery, the toy is able to work and maneuver and go along, right? So mind by itself, because of the consciousness, is that the mind and everything works, right? And once the consciousness leaves, then the mind becomes inert. That is how I am seeing this as.
Yeah.
Okay, Sairam. I don't know why you say the mind is inert. No, I'm asking you. You have the question. If the mind is inert,
The word may not be the right one.
because yes, the reflected consciousness, where is it? Is it in the mind only? So it is not inert. Where is the reflected consciousness? In the mind. So then it is the one operating there. Reflected consciousness is, we heard the, yeah. So jada. No, lot of things come in front of you, then, So we are observing that, right? Right, objects. So mind is not inert. It is very much active, okay? And it is, the reflected consciousness makes us feel alive and intelligent, yes. Because without the consciousness, that is what we all say, I am. We are aware what is going on. I am aware of all this room people. That is a reflected consciousness in me, making me have this awareness.
Hi, Ram. So I want to just go back to previous discussion on the mind. So in some ways, it's almost like, when we are born, we already come, the mind is filled with some vasanas. Where do they come from? So it's almost like a computer. It is dead and you have stored everything in the cloud storage. And now, you have got a new computer and then you download from that. So the mind is like that. So when the new baby is born, it has brought in samskaras based on the previous karma. So that is already filled in there. As it grows, it's being explored, and that is in that is being reflected by the consciousness. And so we get reflected consciousness gives rise to all those things to come out, and then they use the sensor. So but it is never inert. That's what I want to also.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I disagree.
Sukshma,
The mind is inert. It's as inert as the body. The body and the mind are all jada, and they're invigorated, like she said, like electricity goes through the fan. The fan by itself cannot move. The heart by itself cannot beat. The blood can. So everything is because of the real consciousness. Like in a mirror, the reflection looks as real as the real face. So that's why we feel alive.
So what is the electricity?
Electricity is consciousness.
That is, yeah, we don't really realize that pure consciousness itself that comes through the reflected consciousness. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right?
Like the sun,
So,
it's
right,
reflected in the
reflected.
water.
So that power, but the reflected one doesn't have the actual sun's heat.
Reflected doesn't.
Doesn't.
Yeah, it's
But
just a
here, the
reflection.
reflected consciousness is the one giving us life, giving us the intelligence, giving through the mind. See, mind is that is the Sukshma Sarira. Sukshma body is that. All these are stored there. All these, that is the one traveling to the next one. All these impressions, all these. So the question itself is confusing.
Yeah.
Sairam, from what I understand, there are two steps here, two things here. One, what Swamiji talked about is the connection between Chidabhasha and Chit, that is reflected consciousness and pure consciousness. That the reflected consciousness is nothing but a reflection of the pure consciousness. That realization is what he talked about. But if we look at it, the Chidabhasha is nothing but the body-mind complex that we think is real. But that itself, if, for example, if we are all at different levels of that realization, that we are reflected consciousness. Forget about reflection to the pure consciousness connection. Just because many times we are not even aware of the consciousness that exists. We are just caught in this world. So in other words, that reflection itself is blurred. There is dust covering that mirror. We are not even seeing that pure consciousness as a reflection. We are not even seeing that because we are just caught in this world. We are just caught by desires, all this weaknesses that we have that blocks us from seeing that consciousness itself, first thing. Then once we reach that is that wisdom that he talks about that tells, hey, that is a rope, not a snake. Because many times we are just thinking that it is a snake, and we are just worried about it, or we are afraid of that snake that is falsely existing. That intellect that comes and tells that is not a snake, that is a rope, that is that removal of the dirt in that mirror, so that we see that mirror.
Right.
That's
That is correct. So can we just move down then? So can liberation be described as shifting that identification that he's talking about? So can liberation be described as shifting the identification from this reflected to pure? So once I say I'm pure, I'm liberated. That's all. There is nothing more to it. There is no stages in between, because we all go through stages, right?
First of all, this you have to use. So the only stula, the inert, is the body, right? Mind is not inert like that. It is sukshma. It does carry over. The link is the knowledge. How do you acquire that knowledge? That knowledge is the liberation. You have to use the mind to get that knowledge. Knowledge is nothing but liberation. So yes, in a way, that is true. Once you get that knowledge, that's why we call them, they can always separate it because they're in that state of knowledge. Now, how to get that knowledge using this mind, that is the challenge, right? That is the sadhana. That is the thing. And it's always in the same sequence. Start with the body, start with your senses, you learn how to control them, learn how to separate from them. Then you get the knowledge, It is always, the same process you have to follow. That knowledge is what it is.
Right.
Ultimately.
So that's what I said yesterday. The bondage and liberation both happens in the mind, in Maya. As long as you have the mind, you are in Maya only. Okay, there's a lot of explanation for this. It's a little bit higher level. But let's see that mind, as long as we have the mind, we are in Maya. You agree, right? And then the mind only traps us in bondage, in ignorance, like taking the rope as a snake, it is the ignorance. And then we get the knowledge, oh, it is a rope. Then the ignorance is removed, you get the knowledge. That also happens in the mind only. Without the mind, we are not going to realize any of that. So then from your question, I am not the Chidabhasa reflected, but I am that, right? Even then, that is liberation, but it is not enough. No, it is not. No, you have to go beyond that, because why I'm saying that is, even that is an event. Okay, it is a moment. That is an event that happened. I am not Chidabhasa, I am Chit. It is, for example, it is like the sun. You see that powerful sun up there. But if there is a cloud and then the sun peeks through it, it is not the real one. It is still a cloud comes, it might go, right? And then the constant shining brightness of the sun is different from you seeking through the cloud as oh, there is a sun. That's a difference. So once we realize also it is not enough, you get the knowledge at that point.
Sairam, I
Sairam,
think
yeah. The one thing I want to just walk back a little bit. We talked in the on Thursday session, something about some people who are, they called augur rakshasas, we were talking about. So there are evil people who they're not thinking any of these, right? Everything is governed only by the mind-body connection. So everything that body wants and the mind says you should have, they will use the body to get what they want. I mean, they're also living. They're also, leading through the life. And so in one question that comes to me is, when will they ever get out of this cycle? How will they get out of this cycle? If they're really bad, then of course they will. I'm not asking, I'm just going to use that as a yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not starting. So we need to reach, we are now considering the other end of the scale. The other end of the scale is that we realize this is just the reflected consciousness, and the true pure consciousness is what we really are. In between, we are in that stage. We have multiple steps, so we are really thinking, why I'm not getting there? That needs that sadhana, that you have to go through falling down and keep beating ourselves, and it's like the gold which is being hit before it becomes an ornament. So we are at that stage. Each of us is at a different stage. We are not at the augur level, obviously, because we have come here. We are, because we want to know what there is. It is not that we know. So I think it's a huge process. That's what I want.
Just wanted to say one thing. It's true that the mind and body are both inert, but the mind is a mixture of pure and reflected consciousness. So that's the difference. It's a higher state, like you were saying.
So what came to my mind was, like he was saying, the ogre, that Rakshasa, when do they get liberation? There's one, Swami says that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, he would say, in the land of Annapurna in Kashi, everybody gets food. Nobody goes hungry. And they get food, okay? But they might get only, some people get it in the morning, some in the afternoon, some at night, okay? So like that, we all get this liberation, this one. We will reach there, but some go sooner, some later, something like that. But then in God's time, everybody will reach that liberation. Everybody, he also says in that Swamiji, in that talk, right? Without choice, we will all reach liberation. But it depends when. Depends on the timing, God's timing. But we will all get it. Like everybody gets food at least once. Like that, we will also go there.
Go ahead.
No, Sairam. As long as we are born and we are alive, I think we can only claim to say we are the reflected consciousness. We can never claim to be we are Chit. Because the moment we are able to say Chit, we cannot have the mind. The mind, as long as the mind exists, it can only talk about the reflected consciousness. It's not like we cannot claim that I have seen the sun. So I can only say that I have seen the sun's reflection. That's what I think. I think as long as the mind exists, even though intellectually we are able to see the connection between reflected consciousness and pure consciousness, we can reach up to the level of saying that we are reflected consciousness. But we cannot say that, because there is nothing there to claim. When you say we are Chit, that means that I is gone, we is gone. That is completely dissolved.
I have a question here. Sorry. So I'll give you two examples. One is Ramana Maharshi. He sat in that temple, inside that temple, and he was in sadhana for months together. And then the worms would dig into his skin, go in and do all that. He was completely out of his body, right? And that's one thing. I feel like at that time, you have no sense of body, no sense of, so he had that completely, that part was completely out. So I felt that is the part of pure consciousness, him being there in that. Another is Swami. He says that, so for him, he would go out of the body and come into the body, right? So I don't think that we with our small, whatever we are saying that, oh, you cannot reach and come. I think there are main great souls who know that and who can be there, right?
Could be.
So we cannot say that. The only thing is, it's our mind. I remember, in one of the examples I saw, a horse, they didn't tie it actually. They just went around, did, in an imaginary way, just tying and then pulling. And then the horse started coming with it. Nothing was done to that horse, no rope, nothing, but it started coming, thinking that it has been tied and it's being pulled, right? So I was reminded of that when he was saying that, or Sarvapriyananda, that itself is false, that is a bondage itself is false. I was reminded of that, and I was like, okay, I need to keep that horse in my mind whenever I think I have a bondage, right? So again, I feel like both of that, we think that we have to do XYZ, we have to only be very much aware that we think it's a bondage is not really a bondage. And the other thing is that, yes, once we reach that ultimate thing, when we are able to figure out that we are that chit, we can continue to be there, exist in that one. Only those are my two things that
Right,
I want
thanks.
to say.
I want to say they do have the mind, even that Brahmajnani, as long as they are living, but they know how to shut it off, how to use it. So they never go. Ego, yes, they may not, but the mind, that active mind part of it. So even Ramakrishna, he says, I have cancer, I cannot eat. And he can always say, I am Brahman. See, they can go very easily like that. We won't be able to do that. We are immersed in ego. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I thought the next we should talk about. This is where in this chapter he says, who endowed illusion with the capacity to hide the glory? Who does that? And I think that is something that we can definitely focus on. Of course, that brings out Maya and all the other, but that also has a divine intent. It is something along those lines. We didn't create it ourselves. We didn't want to be. Why does anyone want to be in the illusion? Right. But anyway, so with that, I know we are at time. So we will end today with Om and Three Shantis, and we'll definitely come back. Again, the life application is breath-based reflection. Inhale and exhale. These are just words that I have picked up, does not mean that you have to follow this. But whatever your practice be, focus on your breath. And I think that's where we are leading to for as a practice for ourselves to live in the moment. All right, let's end with Om and Three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you all for participating today. Saira.